Good morning, Chairman. We're now live.
Good morning and welcome to the meeting of the Planning and Regulation Committee on Monday the 9th of March 2026. I am Councillor Thomas Sneath, Chairman of the committee, and to my right is Councillor Carl Edgusagowski, Vice Chairman of the committee. Can I remind you that the meeting is being broadcast live via the County Council website, and with this in mind, I'd like to welcome all the members of the public and press who are watching live. As the meeting is being streamed in the usual way, I would like to remind you that your comments will remain accessible online and may be reported by the media. We have had our usual fire alarm test this morning, with no further fire alarm drills test planned today. In the event of a fire alarm sounding, we will leave the chamber through the rear doors, through the reception and assemble in the car park. Can I remind everyone to ensure that their mobile phones, laptops and iPads are on silent for the duration of the meeting. Also, may I remind you that the hearing loop is now activated and requests to speak will be collected through the Vice Chairman. We will be having a comfort break after item 5.2 to allow the public and speakers to leave the chamber. We will now move on to the formal agenda. Item 1, apologies for absent and replacement councillors. Andrew, do we have any apologies?
We have one apology today from Councillor Alistair Arundel with no replacement. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Item 2 is declarations of councillors' interest. This is an opportunity for members to declare any pecuniary or other interest related to today's agenda. Regarding item 5.1, in aid of transparency, I note that myself and likely all the committee members have received correspondence and lobbying from several interested parties and members of the public in this area. In relation to this item, I would therefore like to make a blanket declaration consistent with our Constitution and the law on preposition and predetermination. That we have received this correspondence, we sit and remain as members of the Planning and Regulation Committee, and with an open mind. We will consider all evidence, officer's advice and representations made before reaching our decision. If any councillor considers that their position is different, for example, if you feel that you are predetermined or wish to declare lobbying on any other interest, please declare that now. You may also do so at any point in the meeting should your position change. I am also minded that several councillors were unable to join the site visit and may wish to make personal declarations at this point as they will not be able to vote. Councillor Taylor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning. As you just referred to, a site visit did take place. I was not able to attend that site visit, so I will not take part in the vote on that item 5. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you have any others? Oh, loads. Carry on, we'll go from left to right.
Thank you. Same declaration as Councillor Taylor. I was unable to attend due to work commitments, so I won't vote on that application.
Councillor Murray.
Yeah, I'm afraid I was not very well that day, Mr. Chairman, so I wasn't able to attend.
And Wim Hurst.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, like Councillor Taylor and Councillor Bowles, I was unable to attend due to work commitments, so I will be abstaining from the item. Thank you.
And Councillor Overton.
Thank you, Chairman. Likewise.
Councillor Bean.
Thank you, Chairman. I was the Executive Support Councillor for the Environment, so I've been heavily involved with the energy from waste plant on Wisby Road. So when 5.2 comes up, I will leave the chamber.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. And I would also like to declare... oh, sorry. Do we have someone else? It's Councillor Woodruff.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, it was just item 5.2 as well. I've been involved with the energy from waste plant. It is in my division, and it's something that I've been proactive with. So we haven't discussed his application, but I will be leaving the chamber at that item.
Thank you. Have I missed any more hands? Councillor Hill.
Just on item 5.2, a relative of the landowner of that application lives in my village. I do have an acquaintance with the family. I don't believe they all have a pecuniary interest, but in the interest of transparency, I've declared it, and I've actually sent an email to Clark so that everybody is aware. But I do intend to vote and speak on this item.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. If no one else, I would then also like to make a declaration myself in relation to item 6.6, Spalding and Western Hills, Low Forney, Western Hills Road and Austin Dyke Road, proposed speed limit reduction. I wish to declare a personal non-pecuniary interest. I am the South Holland District Council councillor for Moulton, Western and Cubbit Ward, which covers the area considered by this item, and I have publicly supported the proposal. To protect the integrity of the committee's decision-making, given my role as chairman and as a member of this committee, after the officer's introduction, I will state my personal position, hand the chair to the vice chairman and leave the chamber for the remainder of the item. Thank you for all those declarations. They will be recorded in the minutes. We now move to item 3, which is to approve and sign the minutes of the last meeting held on the 9th of February 2026 as a correct and accurate record. The minutes can be found on pages 5 to 15 of the agenda pack. Do any members have any comments or suggest amendments regarding the accuracy? In which case, do we have a proposer? Councillor Wimhurst and a seconder. And Councillor Whitaker. We'll now take that to a vote. All those in favour, please raise your hands. Any against? Any abstentions? Those minutes have been approved and I will sign them after the meeting. We now move to item 4, which is to approve and sign the notes of the site visit to Baston, held on the 23rd of February 2026 as a correct and accurate record. The notes can be found on pages 17 to 19 of the agenda pack. Do any members have any comments or suggested amendments for their accuracy? No. Therefore, do we have a proposer? Councillor Bean. And a seconder, Councillor Woodworth. All those in favour, please raise your hands. Any against? Any abstentions? Thank you. Those notes have been approved and I will sign them after the meeting. We now move over to the next agenda item, which is item 5.1, which is a supplementary report regarding the planning application for sand and gravel extraction and restoration to agricultural, recreation and nature conservation and creation of a new public footpath, the erection of associated plant and infrastructure and a new altered access from the A15 at Thetford House Farm, Baston, as submitted by Cemex UK Operations Limited. As was noted in the minutes and site visit notes, the committee deferred at its meeting on the 9th of February 2026 on all matters to go for a site visit. The report's recommendation is that, following consideration of the relevant development plan policy and the comments received through the consultation and publicity, it is recommended that, subject to the completion of the Section 106 agreement, conditional planning permission be granted. Before I invite officers to present the report, I must stress to members of the committee not to leave the chamber during an item, as this will preclude them from being able to vote on the item. I would now like to invite Mike Daly to introduce the report. Over to you, Mike.
Thank you. Good morning, all. Could I have the first slide, please? The application for members to consider today is for a new sand and gravel quarry at Thetford Farm, which is proposed to be a replacement for the existing Cemex quarry at West Deeping. As illustrated on the slide, the proposed site is located on farmland to the north of Baston Village and to the south of the River Glen. The application covers around 82 hectares and seeks to extract 2.4 million tonnes of sand and gravel over an 8 to 10 year period at a rate of around 250 to 300,000 tonnes per annum. This would equate to a maximum of around 53 HGVs accessing the site per day, around 5 to 6 arrivals and departures per hour. The site would operate 7 AM to 5 PM Monday to Friday and 7 till 12 on Saturdays. This slide shows the course of the Hall Road, which would access the A15. Access at this point onto the A15 is already consented by an existing district planning permission, and it is proposed this same location would be used and upgraded to accommodate both quarry traffic and all other traffic associated with the Thetford Farm. To the north of the Hall Road and running parallel is the existing Thetford Farm access onto the A15, which will be permanently closed once the new access is brought into use. Next slide, please. This slide shows how the site is proposed to be worked, with mineral extracted in a clockwise direction in 6 phases, with restoration carried out progressively as mineral extraction advances. At the southwest corner of the extraction area is the plant site, where the mineral would be processed and graded, which will be accessed by a surfaced hauled road from the A15. This slide shows the location of the soil buns surrounding the site and along the southern side of the haul road that will be constructed to mitigate any potential impacts from the development. The buns will be 3 metres high along the haul road and 4 metres high around the plant site area. Advanced tree planting has also been undertaken along the western boundary of the plant site, extending southwards along Meadow Road and along the line of the haul road to provide additional screening once mature. Next slide, please. This slide provides some detail on the proposed layout of the plant site area. Other than for the construction of the soil buns and mineral extraction in phase 1, conveyors would also be used to transport mineral from the extraction area to the plant site. Next slide, please. This slide just gives some more detail of the haul road, which would run along the northern side of the red line boundary and shows the location of the new farm access roads to be constructed. This also shows the location of a temporary bridge required by Historic England that would be constructed over the course of the Roman Car Dyke for its protection. Next slide, please. This slide shows a traffic light system and caution signs that will be installed at the crossing point of North Meadow Road and the Quarry Hall Road. North Meadow Road, which on the ground is essentially a trackway, runs from Baston Village and heads north-west through the application site area. The road, other than the crossing point, will be excluded from the operational areas by soil buns. Next slide, please. This slide shows the proposed restoration scheme for the site. The proposed plant site area will be restored back to agricultural use and the remainder to water bodies with a predominantly nature conservation and leisure after use. There would also be a new footpath installed around the site to join the Macmillan Way along the riverbank to the north. Next slide, please. This slide was taken from the air quality assessment and it provides a useful illustration of the distance of the various elements of the proposal from residential areas as observed by members who attended the site visit. The nearest residential property is around 275 metres from the extraction area along Hackstroves to the east. The plant site is around 600 metres from the nearest residential dwelling in the village, with the extraction area being around 700 metres. The haul road would be around 300 metres from dwellings to the south and 350 metres from the edge of the school playing field. Next slide, please. This slide shows the area of the proposed access onto the A15 looking north. And next slide, please. And this slide is looking south. Next slide, please. This slide shows the access and egress paths to and from the site via the upgraded access with vehicles turning to the north and the south. Next slide, please. This slide illustrates that the proposed access would meet the requirement for providing a 215-metre visibility display for an access onto a 60 miles an hour road. Next slide, please. This slide gives some more detail on lane widths of around 3.65 metres, with the addition of a third right turn lane and road markings. The right turn lane would be sufficient to hold 3 HGVs. Warning signs for the quarry access would also be installed at the roadside leading up to the site in each direction. A summary of the officer's report and a committee update to amend the proposed planning conditions were presented at the previous Planning and Regulation Committee meeting. Following the presentation, full consideration of the application by councillors was deferred to allow a site visit, which was undertaken on the 23rd of February. Notes on the site visit and committee update have been provided for the committee agenda to take account of the site visit, and a committee update has been provided to inform members of some last-minute comments received from local residents. To recap, the consideration in each section of the officer's report has taken into account planning policy considerations, the information and environmental statement received from the applicant, the comments of statutory consultees and the comments received from the public and others in response to the proposal. Taking all of these considerations into account, it is the officer's view that the proposal represents sustainable development in an appropriate location that is needed to maintain the Mineral Planning Authority's contribution to aggregate supply and support economic growth. It is therefore recommended that planning permission is granted subject to the applicant entering into a Section 106 legal agreement to cover the matters as set out in the officer's report, and subject to the proposed schedule of planning conditions as set out in the report, with the minor changes to conditions as set out into the subsequent committee update. That's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your presentation. At this point, I would like to state that as chairman, I have made a personal exception to the scheme of speaking at Planning and Regulation Committee. And on this occasion, I am allowing 2 registered objectors to speak for up to 3 minutes each. This will be balanced by the applicant being afforded 6 minutes to address the committee. The first speaker at the first registered objector is Councillor Adrian Clark, Chairman of Baston Parish Council. Please come to the public speaking area. You will have 3 minutes to address the committee, with a warning given at 2 minutes and 30 seconds. The time will begin once you start speaking. Thank you.
Councillors, firstly, can I thank you for your visit to the proposed quarry site. However, we are disappointed at the timing of your visit and the fact that you will not have witnessed the A15 at its busiest and most congested. That said, we hope you now appreciate how dangerous this entrance and exit will be onto a 60-mile-an-hour road, and it is unsuitable and will be an accident waiting to happen. We have also provided you individually by email since the last meeting one of the latest UK-based scientific independent studies on this type of quarrying and its potential effects on air quality and human health. CEMEX have stated they will position air monitors at our primary school, so they must recognise there is a risk to health, or why would they do this? What we don't know, however, is what they intend to monitor, what will be an acceptable level of air pollution and what will not. Who will have access to this data? And if it is to be of any use in ensuring operations stop immediately when levels exceed acceptable levels, will this be real-time data, constantly monitored, with strict shutdown protocols in place? Because if it is not like this, then it is like shutting the gate after the horse has bolted. Our understanding is that CEMEX will self-regulate itself, and we feel what is proposed is totally unrealistic to happen in practice. Councillors, since the last meeting, we sent you the latest UK study, as I mentioned, and I'd like to just quote from that at the moment. Poor air quality is well documented for its links to health issues such as asthma, cancer and autoimmune diseases, posing particular high risks to children and vulnerable population. Authorities maintain that there is no evidence of health risk for residents near quarries, a claim based on the absence of direct scientific studies rather than conclusive safety. This research underscores the need for robust ground-level data to inform decision-making and safeguard public health, particularly given the increased exposure risk to children attending schools within the impact zone. The study's findings strongly suggest that new quarrying activities could significantly compromise air quality and increase health risks, highlighting the inadequacies of the current regulatory assessments. Councillors, it's against this evidence that you must make your decision that we believe will have a long-term effect on the health and well-being of our residents and primary school children. We remain opposed to this application in its entirety. Please reject this application. Thank you.
Thank you for your contribution. Do any members have any clarification questions of the speaker? No, in that case, thank you so much indeed.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. You're welcome.
The next speaker in second register for the objectors is Councillor Vanessa Smith of South Kesteven District Council. Unfortunately, she is unable to be in the chamber today, and as Councillor Smith cannot attend, the Democratic Service Officer will read out the statement, stopping at 3 minutes. Thank you.
I represent Baston, and my ward also includes Langtoft, just 1 mile to the south. Residents across Baston and Langtoft oppose this application. I want to make their voices heard. Their overriding concern is road safety. The A15 is already congested with dangerous junctions. Fatalities have occurred near Catesbridge. Collisions and near misses at both the Baston and Langtoft crossroads are frequent. Because both villages straddle the A15, small increases in traffic make exiting our communities more dangerous. This proposal adds around 100 lorry movements a day, entering and leaving directly onto the A15, putting enormous pressure on this stretch of the road and nearby village crossroads. Note, the Baston Car Show was relocated from this site due to road safety concerns. It cannot be argued that this is simply displaced quarry traffic. Existing quarries at West Deeping exit onto the A1175 and then travel via Peterborough or towards the A1. Quarries around Baston and Langtoft exit via Outgang and Cross Road to the A1175. This proposal places new HGV traffic directly onto the village-dominated A15. The recent site visit did not reflect the reality residents experience daily. Members visited by minibus outside of peak traffic and approached Baston Crossroads following the flow of traffic. They did not experience what it is like to be pulled out onto or across the A15 at Baston, something many drivers avoid because it is hazardous. I cross the Baston Crossroads daily and have witnessed 3 near misses since the last meeting. On one occasion, I braced myself for a collision when a car pulled out in front of a lorry which missed it by milliseconds. This proposal also makes the A15 more dangerous for others. The road already feels unsafe for cyclists and pedestrians face unmarked crossing points. Some Langtoft residents do not feel able to walk the mile into Deeping because they cannot safely cross the road. There is a bus stop at Waterside, just north of the proposed entrance, where school children must cross the A15 without road markings. Even at the village crossings, used by hundreds of school children, vehicles jump the lights. Cumulative traffic is another concern. The Mallard Pass routing agreement allows up to 54 HGV and 105 LGV movements a day along this stretch of the A15. A 2-year construction is anticipated. This is not included in your report. Combined, lorries could pass every 3 minutes. Additionally, thousands of homes planned for Deeping and Bourne. Members, we are elected to represent our communities. When the lived experience conflicts with written reports, we must listen carefully to residents. This decision ultimately comes down to confidence in the safety of a new access on this commuter-heavy trunk road. If you are not confident that this additional HGV traffic can safely be accommodated, then a reasonable decision is to refuse this application. When there is a doubt about road safety, we must err on the side of caution, as it is our duty to protect life. You are not alone in refusing such an application. Recently, an quarry application at Wittersley was refused against officer advice because of safety and traffic concerns. Thank you.
Thank you. I would now like to invite the local division member for Deeping West and Rural, Councillor Ashley Baxter, to speak on this item. Please come to the public speaking area, and as before, you have 3 minutes to address the committee, and a warning will be given after 30 seconds to go.
Hello, I'm Ashley Baxter. Remember me from last time, you've probably got déjà vu, some of you. I represent the Deeping Western Rural Division, which includes the beautiful village of Baston. It has a church, 2 schools, 2 pubs, a village shop and a nearby garden centre. It is a vibrant but peaceful village. However, the village has been actively opposed to the quarry from the outset. This poster is from over a year ago. Residents are opposed to the quarry not for NIMBY reasons, but because it will have many significant impacts. Residents are well used to living cheek by jowl with quarries, having lived with them for many years. However, this is a quarry too far. It's in the wrong place. Here are some reasons for refusal. First of all, it's contrary to the Waste and Minerals Plan. What's the point in having a Waste and Minerals Plan if you're going to contravene it? The quarry, as I'll show you in a moment, it will be noisy, dirty, ugly. There will be traffic congestion, as has been mentioned, and it will be dangerous, not just in terms of traffic, but in terms of air quality. It will destroy good English Lincolnshire farmland forever, regardless of people saying it is sustainable, regardless of people saying it will be restored to agricultural use. That's not the reality. Here's a picture I took the other day at West Deeping Quarry. It's a Cemex quarry that was mentioned earlier on. For the last 20 odd years, it has been noisy, dirty, ugly and dangerous. If you... Oh. Okay, believe me, it's a picture of an ugly quarry. In the distance, in the red circle, you can see diggers, lorries, conveyors, bagging plants, and they, from the photo, they look miles away. They look like well over half a mile away, but you can hear them. And if you're living with that sound day after day after day, that's going to get on your nerves. You will be told by the applicant that the new generation of equipment is much quieter, peaceful, pretty. It's not. You'll be told all sorts of things by the applicant. And then we move on to the traffic. I've just picked these few off the... Oh, you saw it. Oh. Can you go back just one? Yeah. So that used to be English farmland. It will never be farmland again. It will be lakes. It might be a country park. That will be great, but it's a long wait for something like that. And the bagging plant and so on that I could hear very well in the foreground was there. Right, I'm getting near the end. Traffic impacts. A crash on A15 last year on May 25. 2 drivers escaped serious injury. The next one, from Facebook, accident on the A15. That was April 2025. Glass all over the road. And not all these accidents get reported in the right way. The next one, which was the one I was looking for when I went onto the internet, was 3 women died in a car crash at the Waterside Junction. It is already horribly dangerous. The next one, a woman in hospital hits a tree in Baston. It is already a very dangerous road. Would you just skip to the last slide, please? Yeah. There are good reasons to refuse this application. You will be doing the people of Lincolnshire and the people of Baston a favour by refusing it. There are plenty of reasons to do it. It's a quarry too far. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Councillor Baxter. And we did give you a bit extra time due to technical difficulties. So, does any of the committee member have any clarification questions to Councillor Baxter? Councillor Overton.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your good presentation. Can I just ask about the option of the 2 accesses? I see that in the new one, the latest, is that they're going to move the access, to a new site. Was there a difference that you could talk about in that one? Thank you.
Sorry, I didn't realise I was on. We're talking about the 2 alternative accesses to the site. There is currently an access that goes onto the Waterside Junction, which is very dangerous. The new junction that's being proposed is slightly south, but it's between the main part of the village and the busy garden centre, and it's on a winding road. It's not safe. The far better alternative for safety purposes would be to put the access, if you've got to have a quarry, and you don't, but if you've got to have a quarry, far better to put the access at the other end, onto the Fen Road, where quarry traffic has already been, and it's not going to be turning out heavy goods vehicles, right turning into traffic at school time, getting in the way of school traffic. I assume that the reason that access has been discounted is because it's too expensive, too inconvenient. But expense and inconvenience is how highways decisions should be made. I don't mean that they should be expensive and they should be inconvenient, but safety, especially of school children and commuter traffic, should be paramount. It should override the convenience of a quarry operator.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other questions? In which case, thank you very much, Councillor Baxter. I would now like to invite the local division member for Deeping East, Councillor Phil Dilks, to speak on this item virtually. You will have 3 minutes to address the committee, with a warning given at 2 minutes and 30 seconds, and the time will start when you start speaking. Over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I hope you can all hear me. I address you as County Councillor for Deeping East, the neighbouring division to the south of the application site. My division includes the village of Langtoft. For clarity, I'm also a member of the Lincolnshire Road Safety Partnership, as well as Cabinet Member for Planning at South Kesterburn District Council. Thank you has been said to members for taking the trouble to defer determination in favour of a site visit. I trust you found it helpful in understanding why there's been hundreds, literally hundreds of objections, mainly on highway safety grounds, and that's my concern too. I know the application is to extract, it's been said 2.5 million tonnes, and elsewhere it says up to 3 million tonnes of sand and gravel from a site not allocated under the County Council's current minerals and waste local plan. And that extraction would be up to 300,000 tonnes a year. That suggests an average of over 1,000 tonnes leaving the site every working day, with more than 100 HGVs coming and going daily. We all know that at the root of most serious and fatal accidents on Lincolnshire's roads is speed, inappropriate overtaking or right turns. And whilst I appreciate the design, as is said in one of the reports, it's not the design of the roads that is the problem, it's driver error. It's not the empty HGVs arriving at the site that I'm most worried about, even those coming in from the south and using the proposed right turn island in the plan. It's the fully loaded HGVs attempting to leave this newly created exit onto the A15, particularly those turning right to head north towards Bourne, that worry me the most. And I speak as I'm an army trained HGV driver, and I hold my HGV license. I do know what I'm talking about. I know the expected operating hours of the quarry would include 7 in the morning till 5 in the evening, Monday to Friday, and on Saturday morning. Emerging onto the A15 from west or east end in Langtoft, and similarly onto Baston Crossroads in a family car, as I do regularly, can be hazardous at the best of times, at any time, as has been said. It's a very busy, dangerous road. It's much more so during the morning and evening rush, as has been mentioned. The A15 rush along the Bourne-Peterborough section of the A15 is notoriously dangerous.
Thank you, Councillor
HGVs don't have the acceleration speed of a family car to spot, and just having one turn right onto us from a standing start in a heavy goods vehicle, literally weighed down with tons of sand and gravel, could be one too many.
Councillor Dilks, thank you very much. You've had a little bit extra. Just to let you finish off.
I do apologise.
No, that's absolutely
Thank
fine. Do any committee members have any questions for Councillor Dilks? In which case, thank you very much indeed for your contribution, and we will move over to our final registered speaker.
And thank you, members.
Thank you, Councillor Dilks. Our final registered speaker is the registered supporter of the application, Emma Pearman, to address the committee. Please come to the public speaking area please come to the public area. You will have 6 minutes to give your statement, and a 30-second warning will be given at 5 minutes and 30 seconds, and the time will begin when you start to speak. Thank you very much.
Good morning, Chairman and members. My name is Emma Pearman, and I'm a development planner for CEMEX. The application before you this morning at Thetford Farm has taken many years to get to this point. CEMEX have been working with the landowners, statutory consultees and planning officers in this time, whilst taking into account the views of residents to carefully design a scheme that is acceptable in planning terms. The scheme provides benefits in terms of significant biodiversity net gain of around 111% in habitats and over 680% in hedgerow units, proposes the planting of over 15,000 trees and shrubs, and provides a new circular public footpath for residents from Baston Village from the beginning of the development. The scheme also reduces flood risk off-site, both during operations and following restoration. Importantly, the scheme has significant economic benefits, as it will help to fill a large gap in the South Lincolnshire market for sand and gravel, replacing our West Deeping site, which is shortly to close. The site at Thetford Farm is not allocated in the current minerals plan. However, as set out in the planning application and the officer's report, the need for sand and gravel in this area is currently critical. The land bank in Lincolnshire as a whole is below the 7-year minimum required by national guidance and local policy. The land bank in the South Lincolnshire production area is critically low at less than 2 years. Minerals are essential, and the consequences of such a low land bank are far-reaching and include extended HGV journeys into this area from further afield to supply mineral which is unsustainable environmentally, delays to construction and increased cost of construction materials which affects local residents and businesses alike. CEMEX have held 2 public exhibitions in Baston about this proposal. We understand that residents are concerned particularly about the access and the number of HGVs on the A15. However, the access has been through a road safety audit and the Highways Authority find it acceptable. In terms of capacity, the site access is straight onto an A road designed to cope with large traffic volumes. It must also be taken into account that once this site is operational, it is likely that most, if not all, other surrounding quarries will have closed or be shortly to close, with the resulting reduction in local HGV and other traffic. We understand that the committee were concerned about the access and hope that the site visit was helpful in this regard. We do ask you to further take into account the following points on highway matters. The existing site access has been used for decades for slow-moving traffic turning right as tractors from the farm use it to visit the farm's land holding north of Bourne, as well as more recently for construction traffic from the wedding barn. However, as you know, there have been many accidents at the existing junction as it is a crossroads, which leads to confusion about whose right of way it is when there is a vehicle waiting to exit the farm and the road opposite. By closing the existing farm access as proposed, this proposal will result in a safer T-junction at the existing access point leading to the garden centre used by many local residents. There is already permission granted for an access in the new proposed location, which will include slow-moving traffic, farm traffic turning right. So whether or not this application is granted, there will be a new access in this location as it's safer than the existing one. We have heard concerns that the HGV traffic on the A15 will be additional. This is incorrect. At our existing site at West Deeping, HGVs are prevented from turning right along King Street. Therefore, all our HGVs who currently want to go north turn left out of the quarry and join the A15 at West Deeping, then come north through Baston. We know from our delivery data that much of the material from our West Deeping site goes north towards Bourne, Spalding and Boston, so we know that our HGVs are currently using the A15. Our concrete plant and quarry at Manor Pit, Baston, have also recently finished, and in recent years they would have also had HGVs using the A15. So the numbers of HGVs proposed cannot be considered to be wholly new additional traffic to the A15, as it will be replacing existing CEMEX vehicles using that road. As set out in the officer's report, other nearby quarries will also have closed by the time this is operational, further reducing traffic. CEMEX vehicles turning left out of the quarry onto the A15 are not going to be fast-moving vehicles. Residents have previously expressed that it is difficult to pull out at the main street crossroads in busy periods. However, slower moving vehicles may well result in gaps which actually make it easier for vehicles to pull out at Main Street. The detailed access design will go through a further stage with a Section 278 application to the Highway Authority with a further road safety audit, which we hope is reassuring for members. In terms of air quality, our assessment shows that the levels of pollutants are far below the relevant limits, and the scheme has a negligible effect on existing background concentrations. We heard today that monitoring is proposed at the school and that must mean there's an issue. Absolutely not. We propose monitoring only for reassurance purposes for parents who came to the planning meeting. In terms of noise, again, that's well within the relevant limits for the nearest properties in the school. Monitoring of both of these is proposed. As members saw on the visit, CEMEX have also worked much closer to Baston Village historically at Manor Pit without issue. Both the quarry and the farm are important employers of many people in the local area. Granting permission for this application today will secure the future of many rural jobs in this area for local people, and it is crucial for the farm's ongoing viability. The scheme has the support of the relevant technical consultees and officers. We therefore ask you to approve this application, which accords with all the relevant policy. Thank you.
Thank you for your contribution. Do any members have any clarification questions? Councillor Hill.
Two questions, if that's okay, Chairman. First is on the operation, and obviously the issue about vehicles entering, HGVs entering. Just to explain the sort of the 50 vehicles estimated that will enter the site every day. That's HGVs. Can you just outline your operational? I suppose where I'm coming from, will the 3-vehicle right turning facility be sufficient? Is there a risk that sometimes more than 3 vehicles will wish to turn right into the site travelling north?
I think this has been looked at as part of our transport assessment, but 50 vehicles throughout the operational day will result in about 1 vehicle every 5 or 6 minutes. So it's highly unlikely you'd ever get more than 3 waiting at one time, given how spread out they would be.
So just in terms of, do lorries come for a set time? Because, presumably you've got a pile of material to be taken out. Do they come in clumps, or just to explain, they can come all day and there'll be somebody available on site to load them? Or is it the fact come at 10 o'clock and we'll load you then? Can you just clarify that?
Yeah,
please?
they're not told to come at any certain time. They can turn up whenever throughout that day. There is likely to be more traffic probably in the morning than there would be later in the day. But again, it's been tested through our transport assessment, and we don't think more than 3 would have to wait. If there was another one that needed to turn right, they would have to travel further up, turn around and come back and go in left, rather than, obviously they couldn't block the road. But highly unlikely that would occur.
Okay, the second question is, in terms of, obviously quite a few comments about cumulative impact and a lot of quarrying activity around the village. Obviously you're currently about to close down the current site. Can you just remind, I know it's not directly, but I think in terms of cumulative impact, firstly, what are your plans to reinstate the existing operating quarry? And just remind us what your plans are to reinstate the currently to-be quarry.
To reinstate West Epping, I believe it's going back to agricultural land, and that's currently is progressive at this time. So as the quarry is extracted, it's being restored kind of as we work. So once that quarry should be shut later this year, we're about to run out of sand and gravel, or early next year. So certainly before this one would come on stream, and the restoration will be ongoing or completed at that point. In terms of this quarry, we did originally propose to restore some of it to agricultural land with some infill coming in. We were told by the county council that bringing material into the quarry wouldn't be acceptable in terms of policy. So now there won't be any material coming in, which means it's a more water-based restoration. And again, that would be progressive as we're working. So it will be gradually be restored as we go along. Once we've finished extraction, it would take probably about a further year to complete the restoration.
Thank you. Councillor Vernon.
Thank you, Chairman. May I just seek a point of clarification on the comment that you've just made to Councillor Hill about the fact that if there were more than 3 vehicles coming at a particular time, you would expect them to go up through the village of Thirlby to the roundabout at Bourne, which is the next available roundabout, McDonald's, Shell Garage for those that know it, and then come back towards the quarry?
It wouldn't be set in stone. It'd be up for the driver to make a decision on what's safe at the time, but that would be a suggestion that that's what they should do. But it's as I said, highly unlikely that we'd have more than 3 waiting at any time, given how spread out they would be.
I completely understand that you're saying it's highly unlikely, but you can't also sort of confirm that that would definitively not be the case, because the lorries don't have sort of arrival times per se.
True, yeah.
So you could actually end up with, although unlikely, 20 lorries coming at the same time.
I don't think that would ever or has ever occurred that 20
Okay.
lorries turned up at the same time. But the drivers are highly trained, professional drivers, highly trained in safety, and they would make whatever the most safe decision is at that point.
Okay. Thank you for your clarification, though. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Overton.
Thank you. I'm interested in your idea that having heavy lorries creating long queues behind is actually an advantage to traffic flow coming out of the side roads. That's a novel approach. I think normally we feel that if there's a very long queue, people get impatient and dash out when they shouldn't. So the question that I wanted to raise, if I might, is you talked about the jobs. how can they be, what, can you say a bit more about that? And also the other one was about the construction traffic. We've talked a lot about the 53, I think it was, lorries going in one direction, so 106 altogether. And you don't control their flow, so they could come whenever they want. But the question is about about the job situation. I'm not convinced on that one yet. Thank you.
So currently we've got, I think it's about 12 people full-time at West Deeping Quarry. We also employ contractors who are drivers, who work on sort of restoration, soil movement, that kind of thing. So all those jobs would transfer to Thetford Farm if it goes ahead. If not, there wouldn't be anywhere for those people to go. In addition, the farm, this application is absolutely crucial for the farm's ongoing viability. They've told me it's critical. There will be jobs at risk again there. They are a large local employer in that area, and there will be jobs at risk again if this can't go ahead. Just in terms of the slow-moving traffic, that was only because at the public exhibitions we've had residents talking about pulling out at Main Street, which is the crossroads south of the quarry, and it was just, yes, I mean, they are going to be obviously slower moving vehicles coming out, but that would be a benefit in terms of being able to pull out lower down.
Right, thank you. I think that's arguable. Thank you. But you're saying 12, is that full-time jobs?
Yeah.
Would be on the new site, moved from the old site? Yeah. Okay, thank you. And yeah, I'll leave it to that for now. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Bean.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I just want to go back to Councillor Vernon's point. So you're happy to leave it up to the individual driver's initiative to decide if the centre lane is full, what they need to do, because I, for one, am not. I think it needs to be policy, and it needs to be dictated to them that if that centre lane is full, they cannot block the highway and they must move on.
I mean, we if that's what's decided by committee, we can certainly pass messages on to drivers like that, which we do all the time about routing and that kind of thing, and we take action if they're not followed. So if that's a message that, as a committee, you decide, we will pass that message on.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry, I missed the answer about the construction traffic. How much is that? Thank you. And for how long?
Construction traffic will be well below the daily amount that we've said would be the traffic when it's operational. I don't know at this stage the exact amount of construction traffic, but in the officer's report there are a number of conditions about construction management plans that we've got to submit, so we could give more of an accurate idea in that time, but I do know it would be well below the normal operational daily amount of 53 HDBs coming to the site.
Thank you.
Councillor Redfern.
If you get this passed, when do you think is the earliest opportunity for you to get this up and running as a full-time ongoing business?
I think 2027 at the absolute earliest it would be, because there's a number of, we've got a legal agreement that would have to be completed, which likely takes some months. Then we've got a number of pre-commencement planning conditions we would have to put together and submit for approval. We would have to submit the Section 278 application to get the highway access, the detailed access approved, move the plant over from West Deep and construct the haul road. So quite a number of things that would have to happen. So I'd say the end of next year would be the absolute earliest.
Thank you.
Thank you. I have a question for you. In your report, removal of any mud or debris on the road, how do you plan to manage that? I know they're going through a wheel wash, but say they get onto the A15 with best will in the world in the winter months, you will be depositing perhaps mud on the road. How do you manage that?
So yes, they will be going through an existing wheel wash and then it will be hard surfaced road from the wheel wash to the A15, so there's no drag out onto the road. We also use water bowsers, road sweepers, just to make sure there's absolutely no material out on the road. Obviously, if the quarry manager will also keep a regular eye on that and address it during the day as required.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much indeed for answering all those questions. Now I'd like you to retire back to your seat and we'll move on to the main debate. Vice Chairman, do we have anybody wishing to speak?
Councillor Vernon, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Before I sort of make comments on the debate, would you be happy for me to ask the officers a couple of questions for clarification that relate to matters that the speakers have referred to, and then come back later with my comments for the debate?
Absolutely, Councillor.
Thank you very much. You're very kind. So we've obviously heard from the those who've come in this morning with the objections, particularly regarding the air quality matters. And I wondered whether you could clarify whether that is something that we manage and keep track of, or whether that would be applicant-led, and if it is applicant-led, whether we have the power to view those records. Thank you.
There'll be a planning condition on the development which contains a provision for a complaints procedure, and our monitoring officers will then require all the data from the developer, so that that can be assessed and submitted perhaps to the environmental health officer to see if they have any comments, to see if it exceeds safe levels. So there is a mechanism in there.
So just to come on back on that, just to absolutely clarify, it would be the applicant self-regulating unless there was a complaint,
Yes.
at which point you would become involved and request access to the data, so to speak.
We can access that data at any time at request. So if our officers see anything that they think is producing too much dust, they can access that data to make sure there's no impact on the village or anybody else. So it's there and available for us at any time.
Thank you. Councillor Hill.
So 3 separate questions for officers, if that's correct. So firstly, in the noise element, obviously I think one of the latest issues we had raised with residents was the bleeping of lorries reversing. So is that contained within the legislation of noise? Because it is true that the noise of the bleeping does carry a long way, and whether that's actually included in any restrictions or not, which might be placed on the applicant.
Well, the assessments that have been carried out have demonstrated that all noise created by the quarry will be within the noise levels as set out in the National Planning Practice Framework. So there's nothing that's proposed that would exceed those levels. I think with the bleepers, you can get white noise reversing bleepers, which aren't quite so intrusive. But I think it's the intensity of the noise, not the volume of the noise, which people can find intrusive. But nothing from the site exceeds any of the requirements that are set out in the guidance.
Including the bleepers, but
Yeah.
it is possible for us to request that. There are ways around that, however, to have a lower noise, because it does, and it's flat land. It will carry, because I think all of us have been near quarries where you can hear it a long way off.
Well, you can, but at the moment there's nothing to demonstrate from the evidence that we've got, and the environmental health officer has assessed that evidence, that it would be intrusive from this particular development, because the plant site is quite a long way from the village. It's 600 metres or more, and that's the only place where you'd have those reversing beepers going off. It's quite distant.
Okay, second one is in terms come to highways. I think there was some, valid questions made about actually vehicles coming out, or laden vehicles coming out onto the highway, which, so I'm just asking the highways really. First of all, is there, as vehicles are turning in, there is a wide enough area for both vehicles coming out and going in to pass each other on the road? Just clarify that. But secondly, I think there is an issue, as you can see a situation where lorries are queuing up to go into the site from the refuge in the middle, and also a lorry is trying to turn right to go north. There is a conflict there in addition to the vehicles going round. And I would add that we did try and go when it was fairly busy, but obviously most of the operation will happen all day. But I think there's some issues there from a highway safety perspective. That can you just reassure us that those 2 particular issues have been looked at from your professional advice, you're content with the application? Thank you.
Yes, thank you. So the transport assessment that was submitted as part of the application also provides a Picardy assessment, which is basically a modelling tool which is used to assess a new priority T-junction, which is appropriate in this case. So it's looking at traffic which is already on the main road, traffic wanting to turn in, and traffic wanting to turn out, and obviously the proposed geometry. From that Picardy assessment, it determines the ratio of flow to capacity. So that in simple terms, that basically tells us how busy that junction is going to be. So the RFC for that site was 0.62. So when you're getting to 100%, that is demonstrating that it's at full capacity. Anything below 0.85 is considered acceptable in highway terms. So that means the junction arm will operate at 62% of its theoretical capacity. So that would suggest that vehicles can find gaps, delays will not be excessive, and the junction will not be close to failure. So queues are unlikely to become unstable.
Thank you. And the final one, which is a biggie actually, the whole issue of the fact that it's not in the local plan and it's not projected to be in the emerging local plan, and the justification for approval seems to be that there is a need. So I don't know whether to do it now, but I really am confused about this because I want some reassurance that the perceived need, when there are other quarries which are in the area which have been granted permission, although they're not operating. The fact they're not operating isn't our problem. All we've got to do is make sure there's a 7-year supply. So I'm still a bit confused in terms of the actual need for this, bearing in mind it's not in the plan, but they're saying we're a bit short now. I think we need to discuss that at some length, because that basically is the whole justification for this application.
In effect, you've answered it yourself in certain ways. The allocations that come forward for the local plan are sites that are in principle appear to be acceptable to deliver the needs of the forecast requirements of the plan for the plan period. This plan period runs till 2031. Unfortunately, we don't have any control about when those sites come forward to deliver that mineral. So the safeguard of 7 years is set out in the MPPF to ensure that the critical requirement for aggregates does not fall below that level, so that the economy can still continue to deliver. At present, in the whole of the county, we're below 7 years, so we're already below what we're, as a Minerals Planning Authority, required to deliver. In the south of the county, it's even more critical than that, because within a very short space of time, there'll only be one quarry still operating. There are 2 other sites that have got planning permission, but those sites are sand heavy. They don't have much gravel in them at all. There's no indication when they're going to come forward, and the 2 allocations, or 3 allocations, we've got no indication of when they're coming forward. So at this present time, we're at a critical point where the minerals is so low, we need to consider an unallocated site. The policies in the local plan, they provide for that so that it can meet an identified need that can't be met by other sources. This site will contribute towards that need, but even if this site is granted, we'll still be in critical need. So it's not premature to bring this site forward. And any sites that are being proposed in the updated plan, well, the plan's not being adopted yet, so it's not even out to its final stage of consultation. So it doesn't carry a huge amount of weight, certainly in this debate. But even if that goes through, it'll be some years before any of those sites can draw together a planning application and come forward. So that's the reason why this site meets that gap, and it's recommended by officers that we grant planning permission.
Can I just come back?
Yeah.
As I've said in my... we've got to have a supply. It's not our duty then to provide the sites, and if the developers are not prepared to develop the site, as long as we've got on paper a 7-year supply. So I would challenge what you said about that, and the fact that otherwise developers can say, well, ignore the fact we've got all those sites there, we want this one providing instead. And you saying that then that the West Deeping proposed, well, which is currently in the plan, is that is I thought that was more gravel than sand, but I won't have an argument with you about that. But I do think, I'm still not totally convinced that the need is there, and also the splitting up of the county into 3 sections, and Sudbrook, I don't know what sort of material comes out of Sudbrook, whether it's gravel or not. So a little bit more clarity would be quite useful. In terms of policy, I don't think we have to have all we've got to do is supply the 7-year supply. Whether they're worked or not, and I'll take advice on that, is not our issue. The issue is we need to provide outline, sort of nodding permission, if you like, for various sites. So otherwise, what's the point of having a plan if people can just ignore it?
The 7-year supply is consented reserves with planning permission. We don't have 7 years consented reserves with planning permission. And we have 2 sites as well within the calculations that we've already got that are inactive, with large reserves that are inactive. We've got no idea where they're coming forward. Now, that must be a material consideration, because whilst we're required to have planning permission on paper, you still have to deliver. There has to still be production capacity maintained. Otherwise, you're not delivering on the intention of your minerals and waste local plan in providing for commercial interests of the county. So it's, as set out in the report in quite detail, at this present time, the 2 main allocations that we've got, we don't know when they're coming forward. They don't count towards the 7-year supply. They count towards the local plan's assessment of what is needed going forward. But the 7-year supply is, at that moment in time, we need to keep above 7 years. And normally we try and keep a bit above 7 years to allow for growth in demand. But at this present time, for the whole county, we're down to 6.8 years, which is very low. It's the lowest it's been for a very long time. So that's why we have specific policies within the local plan that allow for an unallocated site to come forward. And if it meets those criteria of being able to meet a shortfall, even if it's a temporary shortfall within a local plan, we can grant planning permission for it.
Just one final. So it will be going into the emerging local plan then, this site?
I actually don't know. If it gets planning permission, it will be an allocation. It will be taken forward and included in the plan, yeah. I don't think we could allocate it if it was refused, because it's not deliverable if it's been refused. You've been I think you've been quite convincing there, but then the obvious question to ask is why wasn't it in the emerging plan in the first place, which I'm struggling with. I don't know. In all honesty, I don't know. We still have the issue of the Natural England issue, and the plan, it's a matter of timing as well. This application is quite late in the day, and we didn't know whether it was going to be taken forward even for approval until Natural England, just before Christmas, was satisfied that this could be delivered. So the plan's been written for a very, very long time, and there's a delay. So it could be amended at the final stage. If this gets granted planning permission, this plan will likely be, this site would likely be put in place of some other site in the local plan, because it's deemed as deliverable. Up until Christmas, it wasn't deemed deliverable.
Thank you. Councillor Bean.
Thank you, Chair. I had a number of questions, although I have to say a lot of them have already been answered, so I'd just like a bit of clarification on 1 or 2. So, regarding this application, are you content that the applicant has demonstrated proven need for this quarry?
Yes, I am.
As far as, touching on Councillor Hill's point, as far as the mineral and waste plan is concerned, the fact that this is not included in the mineral and waste plan, are you saying that that does not provide a material case for rejecting this application?
No, the minerals and waste local plan hasn't reached the last stage of consultation, so it's technically not a material consideration in this application. The current plan that we're working with that we've already got up to 2031 is currently the local plan. So that is what we're working towards. And as I explained to Councillor Hill, the only issue with this site was deliverability, because the objections of Natural England hadn't been overcome. They've now been overcome. So this site can happily go forward into the local plan if my colleagues decide to draw it forward into there, which undoubtedly they will.
Thank you. I just wanted to make sure that there were no material grounds there to reject the application. And finally, for highways, we heard a bit about restrictions on lorries waiting to turn right and how it's being left to the decision of the individual driver. I'm not happy with that, and I would suggest that we need to seek a 106 agreement to enforce that no more than 3 lorries at any one time will be waiting to turn right.
I think that can be agreed.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think Councillor Overton next, please.
Thank you very much. I would like to see any extra conditions we could put for the noise, but I know when I did look at the national legislation, it actually seems to be that you can make quite a lot of noise without breaking those regulations. But that still leaves the nuisance legislation. And if residents complain that the noise, the beepers or whatever, or the trolleys or anything, if those are creating a nuisance, they are entitled to be heard and for action to be taken. So it's not a free run. It's not only the legislation we have to think, the noise legislation we have to think about, it's also the impact on people that creates a nuisance legislation issue. Then the key issue I would like to say is that I do understand from the officer that the 2031 Waste and Minerals Plan is a material consideration. If it's not in that plan, that is a reason to refuse it. And that's notwithstanding all of the other issues. Because I still think, and as has been said, the plan is actually really important. This is not a free-for-all. This is not a country full of cowboys, if you like. You know, this is a process where we have a plan, where each site is properly and carefully considered, consulted on at length, and then brought forward through quite a long and complicated process. And that is the point of the plan, is that everybody has a chance to influence it. If it comes as an application like this, it's a sort of ad hoc thing, it's just arrived. And yes, there's a planning process for this particular application, but it should not override the Waste and Minerals Plan. So I believe that notwithstanding what's been said, the Waste and Minerals Plan, if it's not in there, it shouldn't be going ahead. Thank you.
By according with the policies within the Minerals and Waste Local Plan, which allow for an unallocated site to come forward to meet a demonstrable need, this site does accord fully with the Minerals and Waste Local Plan. The Minerals and Waste Local Plan is not limited just to allocations. It has to have provisions in there so that we can make sure we can continue to deliver minerals, and this meets with those policies within the plan. So the plan is a material consideration, and as it sets out in the report, this proposal accords with the local plan.
Sorry, just to come back on that, yeah, I understand what you're saying, but part of the process of a minerals plan is to calculate the forward-looking need for the next 25 years, I think it is, or 30 years, 25 years. So the point of that is that the need changes. The government has said they want lots more houses, and they want lots, that would result in a lot more gravel required, I suppose, and a lot more roads. But it's not, they're not doing it, it's not succeeding, and that plan could easily change. So if we're trying to provide minerals for a dream that is pie in the sky, when actually what our proper minerals plan is much more carefully considered over a long period of time. But the needs will be, I don't think they'll be increasing at the rate that anybody's thought. I think those will be changing. And I don't know when it is next going to be reassessed, the need. Is the need only assessed each time the new plan comes through, or is it assessed every year? Thank you.
The need is assessed every year through the local aggregate assessment. So it's a rolling assessment of sales, reserves, forecasts, and that's what the when you're trying to work out whether you've got meeting your 7-year minimums, it's the local aggregate assessment that informs that process.
Thank you. Councillor Vernon, please.
Thank you, Chairman. And I'm going to apologise in advance because I seem to have completely messed up my page number, so I'm not going to be able to say to you, on page so-and-so, so I'll just make my comments and go from there. The key thing for me here is I obviously proposed the site visit because I was extremely unhappy about the highways matters. I remain unconvinced that these methods are going to solve the potential concerns and issues that will affect the local communities around. I'm hugely concerned about the possibility of having more than 3 vehicles sat in the slip lane in the middle of the road. Members will be aware when we went on the site visit, we were able to see firsthand the junction, the waterside junction where the garden centre where we met is an extremely dangerous junction. I recognise accident data may not fully support that, but those of us who live locally know this is one to watch. You pull out of the garden centre, you really have to check, double check, triple check that it's okay to come out. And I am concerned about the possibility of very shortly up the road having large good vehicles coming out. I'd also totally disagree with the point that slow-moving vehicles will actually make the road safer. I couldn't disagree with that more, and I think that there may be a situation arise where perhaps impatient drivers are actually overtaking those lorries, thus causing more accidents than sort of actually having them not there in the first place. I'm also very concerned and welcome Councillor Bean's comments about conditioning what happens if the 3 lay-by sort of area is full in the middle. I think, but this also raises a further impact on the town of Bourne, which already has a large traffic issue. It's not unusual to be queuing into Bourne in the mornings, so I do remain concerned about the traffic full stop. If I then sort of scoot back to my previous comments, which I didn't get the opportunity to share at the committee because we obviously deferred immediately, I am really pleased to see that the liaison group has been conditioned, and I do think that is a very key part of any application like this, to have the links with the local community so they're able to feed in. I am concerned about the air quality assessment as mentioned by the objectors this morning, and I'm concerned that unless there's a complaint there is no monitoring of this, and it falls down to please sort of any objectors don't take this disrespectfully, but laymen saying, oh, we think there may be a quality issue, let's check it all out before you're even made aware that there may be an issue and somebody's able to do that. I'm concerned about the proximity of the site to the Baston and Thirlby Fens, SSI. I think that goes without saying for any of us. I'm concerned about the impact of dust. I've noted the comments that are relating to Baston Church of England School, and I would ask whether Kirkson House, which is the other school in the village, have been consulted. I believe this is contrary to DM3 and DM14. I think the A415 is already very, very busy, and I understand the reason that our site visit took place at the time it took place, and I want to reassure those that objected that there were traffic there, but I do recognise it wasn't the busiest time of day, but we are obviously limited when we can carry out these site visits. However, again, we saw ourselves firsthand the level of traffic that was on the road, and I know that our Democratic Services Officer was very keen to make sure we didn't get run over on the day, so I think that speaks volumes as well. I also think as well that fundamentally we shouldn't rule out the extensive number of objections that we've received and seen in the report. I think sort of at last count it was 384 objections from the local community. We've had concerns from Baston Parish Council, Bourne Town Council, Deeping Town Council, Gretford Parish Council, Langtoft and Thirlby Parish Council. And I do think that sort of as a committee, we have a duty to listen to those concerns whilst balancing it against policy. I do understand that. But for me, sort of the sticking point, and I know others may have sort of other opinions on this, genuinely to me, it's the highways. I accept what highways have said regarding their view on the application site, but I just can't move away from the point that this is already an area which experiences a number of issues, and I just don't think it's safe to add any more traffic into that. So thank you. Thank you, Chairman. But I'd be happy for highways to come back too. Thank you.
mean, we touched on traffic numbers and everything last time, but, you know, from our point of view, we are talking 106 movements per day over a 10-hour operating day, which does equate to 10 HGV movements per hour, so roughly one every 5 to 6 minutes. We talked about annual average daily traffic survey records. There are already 16,000 vehicles per day, two-way on a typical weekday on the A15 in that location. So we are adding 0.66% to that total daily traffic. So that's well under 1% of the existing vehicular movements that are already happening. They've proposed the appropriate mitigation, and you know, it is considered safe and suitable, and doesn't compromise highway safety or highway capacity, hence why we are supportive of the application and the proposals.
I'm back, don't worry. I thought I'd been cut off there forever. I would like to just come back though. When we talk about traffic impact, are we looking at the impact on the village of Baston specifically and the users of the A15? Because I really don't believe that this application will not have a significant impact on the village of Baston and their residents. So I'd welcome some clarification on that, please.
Yes, so the TA submitted with the application is fully conclusive and does consider the impact along the A15 up to, I think it's the roundabout at Market Deeping, and obviously back towards Bourne. You know, they are using nationally recognised databases. The TA is considered to be robust with audited data, and it applies to the size and the type of development. So these assumptions are reviewed by the Highway Authority, and they're, you know, they're not taken at face value. They are based on, you know, observed data from comparable developments. So yes, we have considered the TA to be acceptable and suitable for this development.
Can I just come back on the dust? As you'll have seen, the environmental impact assessment included a full dust assessment, and it found that there would not be an impact on the village. The distances are too significant. There is a full dust management plan included with the application and secured by planning condition that can be enforced. So the conclusion of the environmental health officer is, provided the mitigation measures are carried out in full, there is no risk from dust that they can perceive for the villagers. So it's something that can be controlled and it can be monitored. Thank you.
Sorry, not to take the mickey, but please may I just come back once more on that. So but where I am, I don't doubt that, but if there is an issue, what I'm sort of really trying to get the point across is the issue could only be raised by residents, at which point the issue is already in existence. So because we're not controlling the monitoring equipment, that's where I just am slightly uncomfortable.
The residents will complain far quicker than we would check the monitoring equipment on a regular basis. I mean, we have regular site visits to the sites, which we can check readings, etc., etc. But trust me, a resident will be the first person to get in touch, and then one of our enforcement officers can investigate and see if there's an issue. So I think it's relying on the general public being impacted, because straight away they'll be straight onto us, no doubt, and that's what we're here for.
Thank you. Councillor Whittaker next.
Thank you. With reference to highways, all the objectors, each and every one of them, complained about road safety. So we've got a T-junction where HGVs are going to pull out. I've driven a 40-ton HGV, yes, and it takes a long time to accelerate. When I drove away from the site visit the other day, I most probably waited 3 or 4 minutes to get out of the garden centre junction before I could actually find a space big enough just to put my car in. So why don't we upgrade this T-junction and put traffic lights there and make it simple, much safer and much easier for the lorries to go in and out of the site. Obviously, CEMEX would pay for this rather than the local county council or the county council.
Okay, so based on the evidence of the TA and the proposed traffic numbers involved, a ghost island right turn lane is considered the most appropriate form of mitigation in these circumstances. So that's why we are in the position where we are supportive of the application.
And just to clarify, a lot of people have considered different ways of accessing this site, but they're not material considerations before us today. We're looking at what's being proposed, whether it's acceptable or whether it isn't. So whilst there might be other ideas, they're not something that's on the table, they're not part of the application, and they're not something that we can introduce as part of dealing with this application. So the decision must be made based upon the access as proposed.
Thank you. Councillor Hill.
Coming back, I'm still not convinced by what I'm hearing from highways. I haven't really heard the answer to the issue about laden lorries coming out slowly onto the A15 who are going to be turning to go north. I mean, just to, I think it was raised in the comments by the public, but I can assure you from previous experience missing trains in Peterborough that in the mornings and the evenings, I know it was fairly busy when we were there, it is literally one continuous line of traffic. And what happens, you get to the King Street turn where the garden centre is, you sit and wait behind somebody trying for a long time to turn across. And then you have similar issues in Baston where people wait a long time to get onto the road. There is a traffic light there, but pedestrian, I believe. So that all amounts to frustration from people who are being held up already on a road which isn't really adequate for the volume of traffic which it's now expected to take. So I still think that, I mean, I can just about live with the issue of 3 HGVs queuing up, and occasionally there might be 4, and perhaps that can be mitigated. But what I'm still struggling with is a lorry having to wait a long time, and then impatience comes from somebody, it's trying to pull over, it's pulling over in front of lorries in a right turn facility. That just seems to me a recipe for trouble. And what I haven't heard from highways is how is that being mitigated against? Because it, as we all know, a laden lorry takes a long time to get moving.
So obviously the TA is an engineering assessment. And it has demonstrated that the junction will operate within 62% of its theoretical capacity, and that is during the peak hours. So that is well within accepted standards. So as we know, the proposal will generate up to 106 HGV movements per day over a 10-hour operating period. Again, 10 to 11 HGV movements per hour, per hour. So in context, the overall traffic flow on the A15, this represents the 0.6% of the annual average daily traffic, and it's therefore a very small proportional increase. There is no modelling evidence to indicate that the junction would approach capacity or operate unsafely as a result of this additional traffic. So we are happy that the TA has considered, existing traffic, background growth, committed development, along with the quarry traffic, and it shows that the junctions will operate within capacity to acceptable levels, and it will not materially increase the queues. Thank you.
Just to add to that, if councillors are particularly concerned about vehicles pulling out of the site at particularly busy times of the day, there would be the option of looking at a planning condition which would restrict vehicles leaving the site, say between 8:30 and 9:30 in the morning, and sort of 3:30 to 4:30 in the afternoon. If that's a concern that councillors have, that they feel that vehicles leaving the site at busy times of the day would sort of compromise the highway safety, whilst we don't think it's necessary, because obviously you just heard from Sarah explaining that everything does look acceptable, but that is an option that councillors could impose if they feel more comfortable in terms of those peak periods.
Yep, finally, Councillor Overton.
Thank you. Sorry, I can't do any proposing or seconding today, so I hope somebody else will. That was a very good compromise suggestion, so thank you for that. I'm also looking for controls. The point about the dust and noise remotely controlled, we have in my area something called the Lost Village, where we had a lot of complaints for noise. It's an annual concert, and they have a remote control on their noise. So when the receptor, which is maybe 2 miles away, is receiving too much noise, it immediately sends a message and they have to reduce the sound they're producing. It can be done, it just comes up as a red flag. They showed us the computer system. It just comes up as a red flag, this is over the limit, and it immediately shuts down the sound. So I think, there are perfectly good ways of doing this, and it could be a useful, I think, addition rather than just relying on the impact already occurring on children, as Councillor Vernon said. So I think that would be a simple condition that perhaps could be added. And also, I wonder when, think about that 6.8 years again, when is that next assessed? And I just wonder if that's coming up anytime soon, because I think it is really important. I still think it's really important that we have a plan. I mean, the whole point of doing a minerals and waste plan is that it should suffice. And clearly, that's why it's really important that people know that if it's not in the plan, then they're reasonably safe, and that's a reason for refusal. Otherwise, they can just pop up anywhere they feel like. Thank you.
I think with regards to the noise, we do have a planning condition proposed for the application, where if we get complaints, then the operator needs to look at mitigation measures they can introduce to limit the impacts of any noise on local residents. At present, based upon all the assessments of the equipment, etc., that's going to be installed on the site, it falls well below the noise limits set out by the MPPF. However, we still have that ability there already built into the proposed planning permission, so that if there are any complaints, additional measures can be looked at in order to alleviate those problems if it's necessary.
And just to add to that, with the requirement for a community liaison group, again, if issues are being raised, then that's something that the liaison group can pick up as well, and that's another mechanism that local residents have to deal with, or to put forward complaints if they perceive that there is one. Obviously, there's the option for the complainant to contact us straight away, and we'll obviously investigate. But obviously, the community liaison group will also be another mechanism where there's persistent issues, and that can be dealt with the operator at that through that forum as well.
Thank you. Can I just clarify? We did make a point that you could restrict movements from 8:30 to 9 a.m. Was it? To 9:30, and then 4:30 to 5:30. Just wondered, 4 till 5. What does the committee think would be the best mitigation? Councillor Hill.
I think the issue is the crossing, isn't it? So I don't know whether it's technically possible just to ban vehicles, exiting vehicles to cross north. I mean, obviously, if they're just going southbound, there'll be a gap in the flow of traffic. So I don't even know whether that's technically possible, but if that was possible, that would certainly resolve that issue, because I know it very well there, and it is, I think somebody said, an accident waiting to happen, and it will be. And I just think if that's possible, the timing is probably wants to be 8:30. By 9, it's probably calming down a bit. So 8:30 to 9:30, it's busy from 7 o'clock in the morning, actually, to be fair. So I'm not sure.
Councillor Vernon.
timings is an issue here because you have a number of children travelling to the grammar school in Bourne and the academy and the primary schools around there as well. I think it needs to be as early as 7:45, but I'm not entirely sure. Would the limit be an hour, sort of 7:45 to 8:45, or could it be 7:45 to 9:30? What would be typical? Thank you. And you've also got the other end of the day, of course, that sort of actually the timings are more sort of 3:30 rather than later.
Yeah, I mean, there's no sort of restriction on how long that restriction has to be, but obviously the more time out of a day that you take out, then that's going to concentrate vehicles at other times of the day as well. So that has to be balanced. I mean, normally when we put hours of when we put conditions like this on, we normally put an hour on at the start of the day, or an hour on, and an hour at the end of the day. So that's a sort of precedent that we've followed. And in terms of Councillor Hill's point, it could be written so that it was only applying to vehicles turning right, so they were going north, and vehicles turning south could still leave at any time of the day if there isn't felt to be an issue with vehicles turning left out the site and heading south, because a condition could be worded to address that, and it could be enforced because it would be clear if a vehicle was turning north and it was breaching that condition. So that can be done.
Thank you. I think there's a lot to unpick. I mean, I've wrote a lot of notes. I think Probably Baston, it sits on a very large deposit of sand and gravel, which means it's a very attractive area to quarry. We've heard about the safety of the T-junction, and I think that we can actually mitigate that with having left turns only out of the site, so that people aren't crossing the roads, which I think officers have touched upon. The reversing lorry beep is designed to be annoying. That's why we can hear it. But hopefully it is far enough away from the site. But I do appreciate that also there is a conveyor belt squeal as well, which I think that if there is a lot of beeping with the wind blowing and the squeal, then I think the liaison group will actually be bringing that up. We are at a critical level with sand and gravel. If we've only got 6.8 years in reserve, by the time this site opens, we're down to 5.8 or less if it's not going to open until 2027. We can't force other site owners to open their sites that are already in the plan. So even though they're in the 7-year plan, if they choose not to open the site, then we are going to struggle for sand and gravel. Encouraging poor driving by people overtaking slow-moving lorries, it's not a material consideration. It is, people will be frustrated. I'm a farmer's boy. I've pulled out onto that road with a tractor and a trailer, and I feel really bad because I'm down to 30 miles an hour. I'm sure these professional drivers will do everything they can to mitigate any problems they occur. We have the jobs, 12 on-site jobs, that will continue by moving to another site. And we've been told that the nearby quarries will be closing, therefore it will be the same lorries and traffic that will be coming on and off other sites using the same road. I do think that the condition of no more than 3 lorries turning right into the lay-by is a very good addition. What we don't want is, as you say, 20 lorries all sitting there at the same time, all wanting to turn right and blocking the entire network up. Additionally, we don't want everybody driving all the way into Bourne, turning round and then coming back the other way and encouraging a lot of extra driving. But I do feel that leaving the site, they aren't all filled at the same time. It's only ones that are coming. And as you say, 7 o'clock in the morning is when probably the majority of drivers will get there. I do think we need to add on the condition with no more than 3 lorries turning right, which is something that I would like, if that's okay. Yeah, on section 106. And also if we could ask officers to look at the timings to allow lorries to actually turn right out of the site, therefore crossing the road, but still allowing them to turn left southwards. Those times, are we able to leave it to officers to look at the best mitigation on that? Councillor Vernon.
I'm very happy to leave it to officers, but I would ask the ward members who are affected are also consulted on that, because I think they've got the very local knowledge about school opening times and peak times of traffic movements, which would be beneficial to be part of that process.
Absolutely. I think that's a perfect suggestion, that you contact the local councillor for those that unique insight. Having heard the whole debate and gone through it, I think with the conditions that we're looking at, which is the turnings and also the no more than 3 lorries, I would like to move the officer's recommendation for approval with those conditions, please. Yes, including the timings. Sorry. So including the timings, which will be discussed afterwards with local members.
Yep, I'll be happy to second that, Chairman.
Okay. So it has been moved by myself and seconded by the Vice Chairman. Could we please take that to a vote? All those in favour, please raise your hands. All those against? And any abstentions? Okay, that has been carried. Thank you very much. I know that we're planning to have a break after the next agenda item, but we have been going for a little while. Could I just ask, can we have a very quick 5-minute break for all those that need to nip out? Thank you. We now move on to our second planning application, item 5.2, which seeks planning permission by FCC Environment Lincolnshire Limited, agent Axis, to vary condition 21, which is tonnage throughput, of planning permission reference N43/0582/15 to increase the throughput capacity from 170,000 tonnes per annum to 190,000 tonnes per annum at Lincolnshire Energy for Waste Facility, Paving Way, North Highcombe. The report's recommendation is that, following consideration of the relevant development plan policies and of the comments received through consultation and publicity, it is recommended that the conditional planning permission be granted subject to a deed of variation on the unilateral undertaking to carry over the routing restrictions of the planning permission. I would like to invite Eloise Sheba, Senior Planning Officer, to introduce the report. Over to you, Eloise.
Thank you, Chairman. Good afternoon, councillors. Can I have the first slide, please? Thank you. The Energy from Waste Facility, and I will refer to this one as EFW from this point forward, currently has a planning permission to process up to 170,000 tonnes of waste per annum. A unilateral undertaking is attached to the planning permission, which includes a routing agreement instructing HGVs to enter and depart via the A46. This application seeks to vary condition 21, which will increase the annual throughput capacity by 20,000 tonnes to equal 190,000 tonnes per annum. Next slide, please. The proposed development is situated within the established waste management facility. There would not be any increase in on-site waste storage or the requirement for any additional plant or machinery. The Minerals and Waste Local Plan identifies a shortfall in capacity for treating local authority collected waste, and this 20,000 tonne increase would provide a meaningful contribution to addressing the shortfall and divert waste from landfill. An environmental statement accompanies the application and demonstrates that the proposed increase in throughput would not give rise to any significant air quality or emission-related impacts. All existing odour control measures, such as negative pressure within the tipping hall and rapid door management, would remain in place. Next slide, please. The proposed increase in throughput would generate an additional 4 two-way HGV movement per weekday, resulting in a 4% annual increase of vehicle movements associated with the EFW. The EFW is served by an established industrial standard access off Paving Way, linking directly to Wisby Road and the wider strategic road network, including the A46. The unilateral undertaking includes a routing agreement instructing HGVs entering and departing the site via the A46, as seen on the slide. A deed of variation is required to ensure that the routing agreement attached to the existing planning permission is carried forward. Environmental assessments, including detailed air quality modelling, show that any increase in emissions would be negligible and would not harm human or ecological receptors. The proposal would also deliver a continued net carbon benefit, supporting national carbon budgets and grid resilience. No objections have been received. Overall, the proposed development is environmentally acceptable, policy compliant and operationally justified. It raises no significant concerns in relation to need, traffic, air quality or climate resilience. Therefore, it is recommended that this planning application is granted, subject to a deed of variation on the unilateral undertaken, to carry over the routing restrictions to this planning permission. Thank you.
Thank you for your presentation. We have one registered speaker in support of the application, Stephen Lawmore, General Manager for Lincolnshire and East Coast Energy from Waste Facilities at FCC Environment, addressing us virtually. You will have 3 minutes to address the committee, with a warning given at 2 minutes and 30 seconds, and your time will start once you start speaking. Thank you so much.
Chairman, members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to speak.
As just stated, Stephen Lawmer here, General Manager of the Lincolnshire EFW, here representing FCC Environment regarding this application to vary the existing planning permission for the site. The facility will look and operate exactly as it does today. We're not proposing any new buildings, physical changes or modifications to the plant. We're seeking permission to increase the annual throughput limit from 170,000 tonnes to 190,000 tonnes. The facility already has the technical capability to manage this amount of material. The calorific value of the waste being processed has been lower than was forecasted at design, meaning that more waste can be treated by the facility at a slightly increased rate. Lincolnshire's population has been growing and is forecasted to grow significantly over the coming years. The county's own waste needs assessment identifies a clear and growing requirement for additional energy recovery capacity. The 20,000 tonne uplift we're requesting can help the county manage more of its municipal waste locally and sustainably. Allowing the facility to run at this increased capacity will also further the amount of renewable and low carbon energy generated for Lincolnshire, helping the county meet its climate and waste reduction commitments. Importantly, the supporting assessments show that the modest increase in vehicle movements and emissions are well within acceptable limits and result in no unacceptable impact on highways, air quality, or the local amenity. Should the extra tonnage capacity be required, benefits for Lincoln and its residents include more of Lincolnshire's waste being handled within the county, increased renewable electricity generation contributing to energy security, reduced reliance on landfill and movement of waste outside of Lincolnshire, and greater efficiency from an existing, already permitted facility without the need for any new construction. In summary, this is a small but important adjustment that allows an already successful facility to provide more robust support to Lincolnshire's waste strategy, whilst continuing to deliver energy benefits for local communities. Chairman and members, thank you very much for your time and consideration today.
Thank you very much. And now I'd like to ask the committee if anybody has any clarification questions they wish to ask, but I do have a very geeky question to ask to start with, which is how much additional energy will be generated from this extra 20,000 tonnes, please?
Well, it's actually difficult to answer. So if we use the extra 20, if the extra 20,000 tonnes were needed, then we are looking at approximately 12,000 megawatt hours could be generated by burning that. But whether we would need it or not depends. The amount of waste that is burnt on site does depend on a combination of the site's availability, so whether we have any outages in the year and what the calorific value of the waste is. So it could be that it's not needed. If the calorific value of the waste is particularly high, then we won't be able to burn that much anyway. But if it were available, then my estimate is about 12,000 megawatt hours.
Wonderful, thank you very much. Councillor Hill?
Just clarify, are we talking about just Lincolnshire waste or further afield?
The waste at this facility is sourced entirely from Lincolnshire.
Thank you. Councillor Overton.
Thank you very much. Interested in the emissions. Obviously, if you're burning more stuff, you've got more emissions. Also, looking at the food waste, I see that it starts with a lot of plastic bags, which then have to be extracted and sent to you to burn. I don't know if they arrive dry or wet, which would obviously make a difference to your calorific value. So can you tell me, are you expecting to cope with that, or do they have to be stored and dried? How is that going to work? And secondly, thinking about the emissions, if that may well increase if you're burning more, and especially if it's more plastic, can you assure us that you would still be well within your limits? And what about the PFAS amounts and the hard solids that result that have to go into landfill? Thank you.
Okay, a couple of questions there then. So food waste we take currently, so the reason people are bagging the food waste is so it can be segregated and not brought here. It will go to anaerobic digestion plants elsewhere in Lincolnshire. So we won't be receiving any of that when it starts in April.
I think you will. I've asked the council, they tell me you will be.
Well, that's contrary to my understanding. That should be going to anaerobic digesters, not here. That's the whole point of simpler recycling, is to take it out of municipal waste. If people have said otherwise, that's contrary to my understanding of the Lincolnshire's policy on that. Plastics, yeah, we receive plastics on minute at the minute at the last assessment we had. Plastics make up about 15 to 20% of the waste that we got on our last sort of weigh-in was made up of hard and soft plastics combined. We're easily able to cope with that in terms of emissions from the site. We've been a Band A operator with no negative points against us, fully compliant with our environmental permit in 2025 and continue to be so.
Thank you. The other one was PFAS and the landfill of the residue. But just to clarify, and I see that you're not forewarned on this one, so I won't stand by that. But I understand from the district council that the first part of the process of collecting food waste, when it's on its way to the biodigester, as you rightly say, is to remove the plastic bags, and they have to go. I understood from the district council, but maybe things aren't finalised yet, to you. So, but the other questions would be helpful. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions?
Sorry, answers to the other questions would be helpful.
Sorry,
Thank you.
What do you mean by PFAS?
The chemicals that can't be disposed of in any way, which currently you don't have to measure in rivers, for example, but the legislation is coming in where you will need to, it's what we call forever chemicals, those ones, which obviously if you've got more waste coming through, more will be coming out in the emissions, but also, yes, the other questions as well, increased landfill. Thank you.
Well, anything coming here doesn't result in anything going to landfill other than the residue from our baghouse filtration system. What can I say? We're fully compliant with our... Sorry, I'm not really briefed on that one.
Sorry, that's okay. I'm asking you questions that aren't in the application, probably. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? No, that's it. Yeah.
Thank you very much. We'll start over onto the debate. If anybody has any questions for the officers. No questions?
Just for clarity, I mean, the transport links are very good there, but it does indicate a small increase in traffic. Well, I've missed it, but just how much would that be? I'm sure there's a figure somewhere, but I couldn't find it. I can't remember. Yeah, I've missed it.
So it's 4 HGV movements, 4 two-way HGV movements per day, which is a 4% annual increase.
Perfect. If there's no other questions... Oh, Councillor Vernon, sorry.
So I'm not really questioning. I've moved on to debating as well now, if that's okay, Chairman. Yeah, thank you very much. Can I just clarify, under 5.2, you haven't had any responses at all from local members, North Icombe Town Council, Skellingthorpe Transport Plan? Is that still the case?
Yeah, that's right.
I think that speaks volumes. And I was going to raise a comment about the fact that a unilateral undertaking to encourage isn't definitive, and I had some concerns around that. But given that everything seems in order and there don't seem to be any objections to this at all from any of the other consultees around the local area, I'm quite happy with it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Overton.
Thank you. Likewise, I have had issues in the past where we've had uncertain emissions, which I thought came from there, but they were, I have to say, they responded really well, and they checked out, and I was convinced and content afterwards that the emissions that I was receiving were not from that site. So I did appreciate the rapid and effective response that I received when I did have a complaint. So appreciate that. Secondly, I realise there is clearly a need for this, and as has been said, there's no objections, and I'm pleased that it does not involve an increase in the footprint of the site. I was going to ask how that was possible when you're increasing the volume, and it was always built to capacity, but he did explain that it was due to the reduced calorific value of the material coming in. So I think based on that, I am content with what I've heard. I think there are going to be issues in the future with the emissions, because I think we're going to get more concerned in the future, but I think that's a few years ahead. So thank you very much. I'm happy to support this, propose even, since it's not been proposed yet. Thank you.
Chairman, I'm happy to second this application as per the officer's recommendation too.
As we have no other speakers, it has been moved by Councillor Overton to recommend the officer's move the officer's recommendation, and seconded by Councillor Vernon. All those in favour, please raise your hand. Yeah. Just check. Any to the contrary? Any abstentions? That has been moved. Thank you very much. Now, I did say when we started we were going to have a short break here. Has everybody had a break? And does anybody else need a break? In which case, we will move swiftly over. Yeah, we'll swiftly move over to the traffic items, but I will allow officers that are not involved to leave the chamber.
I move that we take over the running of the council from this meeting, Chairman.
Two members to come back to the chamber. We will now move on to the next section of our agenda, where the committee will consider the report and objections of the executive proposals for proposed traffic regulation orders and speed limit orders. But at this point, I would like to announce that owing to further work necessary for the report, a request has been made from officers to defer item 6.2 in Bourne, which is Westbourne Park, proposed waiting restrictions, to a further meeting. I would like to propose that we do this. Can I have a seconder? Councillor Vernon. All those in favour, please raise your hand. Thank you. That item will be deferred. We'll now move on to the first item in Alford, which is the A1104 West Street proposed amendment to waiting restrictions. Over to you, Jeanne.
Thank you. So this report relates to the revocation of a limited waiting bay. There are existing waiting restrictions on West Street where the carriageway narrows slightly. This proposal is to extend those as shown on Appendix A. We've also taken the opportunity to increase the operational waiting time of the remaining limited waiting bays from 30 minutes to 1 hour. We've received 2 objections concerned about the negative impact on residents in the area and also on visitors to the surgery and nearby pharmacy who would use these parking bays. There's also stated that the change to the waiting period will be a disbenefit to businesses, and that the proposals aren't needed on the basis that it's an enforcement issue in the location rather than the parking restrictions. Having monitored this site, it's clear that parking in the bay to be revoked does result in obstruction to two-way traffic flow, and we're confident that removing it will improve that flow on what is a main route in and out of the town. Excuse me. The extension to the 1 hour limited waiting will benefit residents and businesses and increase dwell time for visitors to use the businesses and amenities in the surrounding area. It's recommended, therefore, that the objections are overruled so that this scheme may be introduced as advertised. Thank you.
Thank you. Vice Chairman, do we have any questions?
Anyone wish to speak? No, that's it, Chairman. Yeah.
Okay, I do note, I mean, there has been some parts of the report that people were saying with blue badge holders, but I am aware they can still park on double yellows for up to 3 hours, as long as they display their badges, in which case then they will be able to still park in some of the areas. I'm happy, therefore, to propose that the committee notes the content of the report and the proposed traffic regulation order detailed in Appendix A has been given due regard the objections received as details in the report and recommends to the Executive Council for Highways and Transport to support the proposed offer. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Vernon. Tell that to a vote. All those in favour, please raise your hands. Those against? Any abstentions? Thank you. One abstention. Thank you. That recommendation has been carried. We now move over to item 6.3, which is Lincoln, Glenwood Grove, proposed no waiting at any time. Over to you, Jeanne.
Thank you. This is a small scheme where we're proposing double yellow lines around the junction with Glenwood Grove and Booton Park Road. It's been noted that parking on this junction obstructs traffic flow in and out of the junction and obstructs visibility for vehicles coming out of Glenwood Grove. We've had only one objection whereby it's considered that this will be detrimental to residents, many of whom don't have off-street parking and some of whom are elderly or disabled. Our view is that it's important to keep this junction clear of parked vehicles, not only for the benefit of traffic but also pedestrians trying to cross here. It's therefore recommended that the objections overruled so that the scheme can be introduced as advertised. Thank you.
Thank you. Vice Chairman, do we have any questions?
Councillor Murray, please.
I think this is a really sensible option, Chair, and I would move that we accept it.
Councillor Hill.
I support the recommendation, but yet again we are. This is where, you know, in reality, it's something that police should be enforcing. So, and obviously the previous now withdrawn application had lots of similar. So I do wonder, although I support this, are we getting to a stage where we need a more sort of comprehensive view on what are we going to say? Are we going to go have endless meetings putting restrictions on various junctions, which doesn't seem a sensible way of going forward if we are now moving into the era of where we are putting our own restrictions on so they can be enforced. But again, we've had this conversation many times, but you know, otherwise we're just going to, every meeting is going to be filled up with junctions with restrictions on them. But I support the recommendation.
I couldn't agree more, Councillor Hill. It's the same. Parking on junctions shouldn't be allowed, and we're having to spend committee time just talking through them. But it is being looked at. But thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was about to make the comment you made regarding parking on junctions should not take place, but unfortunately it does. So I do support the recommendations here because blocking these junctions does affect traffic flow, which makes the area unsafe for all road users, including pedestrians. Just one question here regarding timescale, if this is approved today, when can we expect this to take place, or for enforcement to start to take place? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Approximately 2 months. We have to give our contractor an 8-week lead-in period for any works that we issue. So we'd expect to see the works in place in May or June.
Thank you. Any other speakers?
Thank you. Well, Councillor Murray has moved that the committee notes the content of the report and the proposed traffic regulation order as detailed in Appendix A has been given due regard to the objection received as detailed in the report, and recommends to the Executive Councillor for Highways and Transport that the proposed order be approved. I'm happy to second that. Do we please take it to a vote? All those in favour? Any against? Any abstentions? Thank you. That has been moved. We'll now move on to the next item, which is 6.4 in Lincoln, in Sinsel Street, proposed extensions to one-way and prohibition of driving orders and no loading and no waiting at any time. Over to you, Jan.
Thank you. So the police and the City of Lincoln Council raised concerns with us about the use of this open area at the southern end of Sinsel Street, where it is adjacent to St Mary's Street. It's used by vehicles who just drop in there and to pick up and drop off passengers, and this happens very frequently, and there's concerns about pedestrian safety as a result. It was created at the time we built the new bus station in 2017, and the area was designed for to carry the large numbers of pedestrians that are migrating between the bus and train stations and the shopping area. Next slide, please. This just illustrates the area itself and vehicles coming in to drop off and pick up passengers. So to manage this parking issue, we have promoted a scheme whereby we're extending existing restrictions in Sinsel Street, which are a one-way order for southbound traffic flow only, and also a restriction on vehicular access between 10 and 4 each day. This will mean that the signage, no entry signage, you can see, well, probably can't see on that very well, I'm afraid, but would be brought forward to the junction with St Mary's Street and would prohibit any access by vehicles. We've had 2 objections. There is a small number of residents in the area, and 2 have objected because on the basis that this will restrict access to their premises, they will have to come in via Waterside North to the north and down Sinsel Street in order to load and unload from their vehicles, and also deliveries to their premises will be affected. They believe it's the only area where vehicles can drop off and pick up, particularly taxis, because of the restrictions around the surrounding area preclude this. They think that the vehicles in the area are moving very slowly and therefore do not pose a threat to pedestrians. The concerns raised have been noted, and indeed it is correct that this will impact on residents' access to their premises by vehicles and deliveries to their premises. However, in relation to enforcement, the restrictions on St Mary's Street are no waiting at any time, no loading at any time, but this does not preclude stopping to drop off and pick up passengers. So therefore, this area is not needed for that purpose. This paved area was developed principally for pedestrian use, and although vehicles accessing it may be slow moving, the potential for conflict is nevertheless still there. So these proposals will reduce the potential for conflict between moving vehicles and pedestrians, and also facilitate planned improvement works by the City of Lincoln Council due to take place in this area. Thank you.
Thank you. Vice Chairman, do we have any questions?
Councillor Murray, please.
I haven't got a question, Chair, but I would like to support the proposal. That area has become more or less a bit of a car park, and the potential for accidents is increasing. So I think the proposal is very sensible.
Thank you. Councillor Vernon.
Thank you. I'd also support this application. I think the thing is about this area, it's perception, and people are not expecting to come across moving traffic. So for that reason, I'm very happy to support. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hill.
Yeah, there was a sense of irony when the police support this. This is the same police who are refusing to enforce the cycle lane and people parking on the cycle lane. So I'm a bit struggling with what's the point of this, so I need some guidance, because currently, I think Councillor Murray, obviously Lincoln, is quite right. There's always cars there either dropping off or sometimes seem to be there quite a bit longer. So under this proposal, will cars still be able to drive onto the, not necessarily, let's ignore the one-way bit, will they still be able to drive onto the area next to the street, which is where they, can I just have some clarification on that?
Thank you, Councillor Hill. So they won't be able to actually manoeuvre their vehicles onto the area coloured blue on the plan.
No, I'm talking about the white area next to the blue, which is obviously open as well.
Yeah, I mean that is, access to that will be prohibited. It already is to some extent by street furniture, seating and pavement cafes. So the idea from the City of Lincoln Council is that they will be reconfiguring that area to ensure that there will just be a vehicular passage for vehicles coming out of Sinsel Street, and there will be no access for there won't be any physical ability for vehicles to access the other areas.
So then we've got the issue of cyclists their lane will be blocked because police are saying, well, we're not going to enforce that. So people who currently park there to say drop off people going to the bus station or more likely to go shopping or whatever, more people will just park on St Mary Street where the cycle lane is. Is that really a satisfactory state of affairs?
Well, the parking is prohibited.
Yeah, but
not
it says
to
in the
drop
report
off and
the
pick
police
up.
are openly saying we're not going to enforce it. So that's all right then. People can park there. This is, that's why I have a big problem with this. We're almost, the police are saying, well, actually, because we're not enforcing it, it'll be okay for people to park there. If they're not parking, let's say they don't park on St Mary Street, where exactly would people be able to drop off people, let's say, who want to have been driven to, say, catch the bus?
They will be able to drop off and pick up on St Mary's Street, but they will not be able to park because we can enforce our restrictions in terms of the waiting restriction and loading restriction. We can't enforce the cycle lane. That is a moving offence, and that relies on police enforcement, which, as I've said in the report, is not forthcoming.
Okay, thank you. I think Councillor Bean was next.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I've got a couple of questions here. So, first of all, we talk about conflict between moving vehicles and pedestrians. Are there any records of incidents in this area?
Thank you, Councillor Bean. No, there are no reported injury accidents over the last 5 years in this area.
So, no incidents whatsoever in the last 5 years?
Not that have been reported as injury accidents, no.
And my other concern is, you say, because of the one-way system, so we're going to encourage drivers to drive down Waterside South and then along Sinsel Street. I think that's liable to cause more conflict between drivers and pedestrians than people pulling in here to drop people off and pick people up.
The restriction in place on Silver Street prohibits access by vehicles daily between 10 and 4, so that's any vehicle. You're only allowed to come into that restriction outside those hours for the purposes of loading and unloading. So the traffic is restricted now quite heavily, and that will continue and just be extended down to the junction with St Mary's Street.
Thank you. I just seem to think that we just seem to be driving drivers out of Lincoln completely, and with them you take the commerce as well. So I'm not sure I can support this.
Thank you. Councillor Overton.
Thank you very much. I'm also interested in where the traffic should go, you know, and always when we make restrictions or prevent parking, we have to try and look at where they will go. You know, where else can they go? So if we're dropping somebody off to get on a bus, which, you know, is presumably what we are trying to encourage people to use the bus, I mean, we're assuming they can walk that distance and they know which way to walk. And I think that might be quite tricky. And also, if we're just displacing that traffic onto another illegal parking area in St Mary's Street, it's displacing it. And we might be reducing conflict with pedestrians, but increasing it with cycles, for example. So I think it needs a bit more of a wider thought as to, you know, how to actually improve the whole area where people are going to use it, rather than just add a further restriction. Thank you. Alternatives.
Thank you. I did have a look at the area. I'm not from Lincoln, but I do go past it every time I come to the chamber and every time I leave. And I was very surprised that you can drive on that area, you know, between the hours of 10 and 4, whereas people coming out of the bus station, they're holding their luggage, they're not expecting a car to suddenly come in front of them or a taxi to pick them up. We do note that, yes, you can alight and collect on the double yellows outside the bus station so that taxis can be there. Also opposite, there is the train station, which does have a 20-minute waiting for railway users, so that if anybody was a taxi or anybody from the train station could be using it. So there is alternatives in the area. But I'm very supportive of the members that have said that this area should really be restricted, and with a no entry onto there. If they do need to have deliveries, at least they can use the one-way system. You know, there is that, or they can have it before 10 or after 4. I think it's one of those anomalies, looking at the report, that there's a small section of road that probably should have been cut off but hasn't, and unfortunately it means that there is a conflict between pedestrians and vehicles that wouldn't be expecting. And I'm pleased to hear that there has been no incident and there has been no injuries, but I think we need to look at this sensibly and say, what we are doing is providing a parking area or collection area for the bus station, which can be done on the actual main road. And with that in mind, I would like to propose that the committee notes the contents of the report and propose traffic regulation order detailed in Appendix A. We have given due regard to the objections received and detailed in the report, and recommend to the Executive Council for Highways and Transport that the proposal be approved. Could I please have a seconder? Councillor Murray. We'll take that to a vote. All those in favour, please raise your hand. Those against? And any abstentions? Is that all? That's carried. Thank you very much.
Councillor Vernon, did you vote in for or against? Sorry, for.
Yes, I voted for. So I believe it was 5-4, wasn't it? Well, funnily enough,
I got it as 5-5. I got it as 5-5. Can we just, for clarification, again, just all those in favour, please raise their hands. Okay, that's 7-4. Any against? 5 against. Brilliant. And any abstentions? Wonderful. Thank you, everyone. That has carried. We now move over to item 6.5, New Bolingbroke, the B1183 Main Road, proposed 30-mile-an-hour speed limit. Over to you, Jeanne.
Thank you, Chairman. So members may remember this has been to the committee a couple of times previously. Where we are at the minute is that we've proposed a 30-mile-an-hour limit as shown the extent at Appendix A, based on a mean speed of 35.7, which was approved as a borderline case last year. We've received an objection from the Enforcement Delivery Manager of Lincolnshire Road Safety Partnership, Mr Hook. A copy of Mr Hook's detailed reply to us on this matter is provided at Appendix C, and he's referenced other speed surveys carried out in the village which consistently give higher results than that used for the assessment. You can see there on the screen. He's also provided latest Department for Transport guidance on the factors influencing driver behaviour and the appropriate introduction of speed limits. And he's concluded that analysis of the various mean speeds measured indicate that a 40-mile-an-hour limit would comply with our policy and be a more appropriate level of limit at this location. Mr Hook has kindly agreed to attend this meeting today to answer any questions members may have to assist in determining their recommendation to the Executive Councillor for Highways and Transport. Thank you.
Thank you, Jan, and thank you, Mr Hook, for being present in the chamber to answer any of the questions from the committee. And Vice Chairman, do we have any questions?
Councillor Hill, please.
Yes.
Oh, sorry.
Right. I have a problem here because when we met in November, we were told the average traffic was 35, survey said 35. We now learn, thank you to Mr Hook, that actually there have been several speed surveys done, starting in, it's all there on page 209, so we've got 46, 43, 35, which is the one we were told about at the meeting, 14, 47. Now, ignore the 39 outside the church at because that was done in after we met. So I suppose the first question is, how come we're only learning now that, you know, the one which does look to be an outlier was the only one we were told about in November, which is what we based, well, I voted, I don't know what I did actually now, but which was why the committee, I presume, voted for the 30 limit. And it's quite clear from this survey that the appropriate speed is actually 40, not 30. So I think we should, unless I've got it wrong, and Mr Hook's here to correct me if I have, but this clearly shows that 40 is the appropriate speed limit for this area, and that's what I suggest we would do. But I would like to understand why. I mean, we've got to have confidence in the data we're being presented with is fair and accurate. So I suppose could I ask why in November we only got one speed?
Thank you, Councillor Hill. So when we assess our speed limits, we get our own speed survey, independent speed survey, as it were, done to enable us to make that call, and this is what we did in this case. It might be that we do utilise more in the future other speed surveys that have been carried out by the police. I think we need to strengthen that link between us and the Lincolnshire Road Safety Partnership so that we do have access to each other's information. But in this case, we base the survey, we base the assessment on this mean speed.
Sorry, do I come back? Links Lab, so Links Lab said in 35 miles an hour. Links Lab also said in October 24, 40, and again October 24, 47. That's us. So I'm still not. I'm not happy we just ignore what Road Safety Partnership, but those are our own results from Links Lab. So again, if we're going to have confidence, I mean, I don't really want to have to expect every single survey to come to every single meeting, but at the moment, I'll be blunt, I just think there was one figure picked out which supported the recommendation.
I think we take the speed survey at the time of the assessment, and that's what's happened here, and that can change over time, but it's a moment in time, a week's survey that we carry out as standard, and we take it at the time of assessment, and that's the one we will take. as I say, I think it's probably we need to work a bit harder at trying to get hold of other information in order to inform our decisions.
I understand that, but it says here October, which is the month before we met. October 24, sorry, it wasn't, it's 25, but those are the two latest. So you're saying the survey you took was something completely different? So the November meeting said 35 was the average speed or something like that, didn't it? It did, because I've looked at it last night. So what I want to understand is in November, what particular survey were you referring to come to the, I think it was just over 35, wasn't it? If you look back at the agenda at the time.
I think it was 36, but for the purposes of the assessment, it means the same thing. As I say, that's what we've used, and in the light of further information that has been provided back to us by Mr. Hawke, we put it to committee that they may wish to. I mean, the basis of the initial 30 mile an hour was approval as a borderline case. That's what we did. We brought this mean speed as a borderline case, and that was approved, but then overruled subsequently, and a 40 was subject to consultation, which again received objections, so that it's now come back as a 30, and it's still in dispute apparently. We have more information that will help hopefully inform members better of where to go next with this proposal.
Thank you. Councillor Vernon.
Thank you very much indeed. I'm struggling a bit with this application for one reason, and that is that we have already decided this. So we decided in February 2025 and we decided in November 2025, and I understand the point that has been made, but from my perspective, the parishes are expecting this to happen. And again, that's not a reason in itself not to go ahead with a programme, but I feel that this has already been decided. So I just welcome some clarification on why this is back for the third time. Thank you.
It's been brought back on the basis that we've received an objection, so we just need to a committee decision on whether to overrule it or not.
Thank you, Jan. I mean, looking at the report, we've had a suggestion in the report that says that if it is a 30, it will be unenforced. Yet if you have a 40, it will be enforced by the safety partnership. Is that correct? Robin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Councillors. I'm not saying nothing's going to be enforced, because obviously that's down to policing, and any speed limit is a speed limit that will see some enforcement. I think the issue that you will have is if this is a 30 with the average speeds that we've currently got going through there, you will be creating a large speeding problem that won't see the level of enforcement that residents will want, because policing have to manage the expectations of every single community that has a speeding problem, alongside every other job that's coming in to be dealt with, whether that be protection, crime, etc. So the actual levels of enforcement across the county are not at the levels that the police would like to be doing, but obviously other commitments end up resulting in less enforcement or more targeted enforcement at areas where there's a issue with regards to serious risk to the public and road users. From a camera point of view, it will not meet criteria for camera enforcement based on the current data, whether it's a 30 or a 40. So it's about managing the expectations of what you want to bring in for the residents and what that will see. There's no doubt that if you put a 30 in, the speed limit, the average speeds will drop. But only from what we normally see is by about 2 or 3 miles per hour. If they're currently the average speeds are in the 40s, it's not suddenly going to drop to 30 miles an hour unless the council is going to do some further engineering works to make it have the look and feel of what would naturally be a 30 limit. So, yeah, I'm not saying there's no enforcement, but enforcement won't be at levels that communities would want. Thank you.
Thank you. I mean, I'm with Councillor Vernon on this. It's now the third time that we've seen this. We've already made a decision on it. Yes, I know there's been a complaint or some further data come forward, which would change the fact that we would be discussing a 40, but we have already discussed it, and we've already agreed that the executive should look at a 30. And I think we're going to go, I mean, how many more times does this have to come back to committee before we get the answer that people want? I'm pleased that it will be enforced, as in if it was a 30, people would be expected to be doing 30, and there would be some presence there. I think even at a 30, it will naturally bring down the speed, although it will take a long time for people to get down to a 30. You've seen cars. I'll continue the debate if anybody else has any more questions, and we'll go from there.
Councillor Taylor, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Some of my comments and questions have now been dealt with. Just that last comment from Mr. Hook, when you referred to potential future engineering works, again on page 209, there's a commentary regarding looking back 5 years and two slight injury collisions, and then a note saying both of these indicate maybe improved market straight signage in the location could be looked at. Any more information on that? Has that been looked at? Is there an update?
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Not at this stage, no, but it can be looked into as required.
Thank you. Councillor Hill.
Well, I'm sorry, I disagree with you. If more information comes to light, there is absolutely nothing wrong with the committee then, in the light of further substantial information, actually the committee then are looking at it again. I mean, I'm not sure on terms of the process, but I would have thought by now, having consulted again and again, whatever is decided will be then recommended to the portfolio holder to make a final decision. So and I've said this so many times, it's all very well putting speed limits everywhere. They're not going to be enforced, and all that will do, and if drivers feel, and we know what this road's like, it's a long straight road, if drivers feel that it's not a reasonable situation to be under a speed limit, they will ignore it. It won't be enforced, and we'll also get to a stage where drivers will all get to the stage where they have no confidence in the speed limits at all anywhere, so they'll just think it's this is an unreasonable speed limit, and actually where somewhere else where the speed limit is reasonable, they will probably ignore that as well, because they feel whoever they are, putting, I suppose it does actually, isn't it, putting speed limits everywhere, and we think it's unreasonable. And for years and years, the issue was it was felt that speed limits are put in where the normal driver would feel that this was a reasonable situation. And I don't think in this case, dropping it down to 30 from, I believe, 50, is that right? We are dropping 20 miles an hour in one go, which again is quite unusual. So I don't think we should. I would definitely be voting against this, but I'll leave it at that, Chairman.
Is there any other speakers? Councillor Overton.
Thank you. With the new figures, would the recommendation be 40, and then we'd have to go out to consultation again? Is that right? How does it work? Because that seems a bit tedious as well. Or can the executive member now make his decision?
Thank you, Councillor Overton. We have already consulted on the 40 and advertised it, provided that there is a 2 years have not elapsed since the date that we advertised that 40. We could theoretically just put it in straight away.
Okay, well, it's up to the executive. I feel we've made our decision, and the executive should decide if that's the process. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other speakers?
Councillor Overton, did you want to propose then that we accept the officer's recommendation on this one?
Yes.
Perfect. That's to do for the 30, and then let the executive councillor will then make the decision. Is what we're here. So we're just going to pass on to the executive councillor what we feel, and they will be making the decision. Yeah. So, Councillor Overton has proposed that the committee notes the contents of the report and proposed speed limit order detailed in Appendix A with supporting documents at Appendices B and C, has given due regards to the objection received as detailed in the report, and recommends to the Executive Council for Highways and Transport that the proposal be approved. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Vernon? All those in favour, please raise your hand. Those against? And any abstentions? Thank you. That recommendation has been carried. We now move on to the final item, which is 6.6, Spalding and Western Hills, Low Fulney, Western Hills Road and Austin Dyke Road, proposed speed limit reduction. Over to you, Jan.
Thank you, Chairman. So we've carried out speed surveys as shown at Appendix A. Sites 1 and 3 are in line with policy criteria for a 30 mile an hour and 40 mile an hour to be introduced as shown on the plan. However, the mean speed of 44 at site 2 means it should be considered as a borderline case and therefore requires approval of the Executive Council for Highways and Transport for a 40 mile an hour limit to be pursued. This report seeks that approval so that the speed limit shown at Appendix A may be subject to consultation. The committee is therefore invited to consider this proposal and put forward a recommendation to the Executive Councillor. Thank you.
Thank you, Jan. As explained earlier, I am the District Councillor for the area, and therefore I will be making just a very short statement. This is an area where we always assumed it should have been a 30, and it hasn't been. It's been a 40 through the village. It's more there for safety. If you're local, you will be doing 30. If you're not local, you'll be doing 40 because that's the posted speed. And we can't, ask why people wouldn't slow down lower. There is a pub that exits onto the road. There are cars parked on the road outside their homes. There is a long lane where there are 2 factories that use that road rather than going through the village of Moulton. They come out and turn onto that road. They exit the village at 40 and can go up to 50. We've already, in previous items, learned that it is difficult for large vehicles to exit from minor roads onto a major road. I completely support this. Round the corner, a bit further up, past the other factories, we're already down to a 40. It just appears that this bit has been missed. And luckily now the speed survey has been done and it has highlighted exactly what the locals feel, which is we travel at 40 on the Austin Dyke Road, we go down to 30 through the village, purely for safety, as that is the speed which we feel is most appropriate for that location. And I will leave it to the committee to discuss and hand over to the Vice Chairman. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I will chair the rest of the item with a Democratic Service Officer acting as a spotter. Andrew, do any members have any questions?
Yeah, I mean, I support the recommendation. I mean, clearly in the village, what is it, site 3, I can't see here. Well, site 3 clearly should be a 30. Normally it isn't all those houses there. And although there is a section where the speed limit, the average speed, as long as it's correct, should I say, would indicate, but that would leave a small section, so it's probably just as well to have 40 all the way till you hit the 30, so I support the recommendations.
Councillor Taylor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman or Vice Chairman. I agree with the comments made by the Chairman of the committee. He does know this area particularly well, as do I. I've driven this road, cycled it, and also worked on it in the past. Chairman referred to the factories on there and the local pub. There's also some terrace properties which are straight out onto the footpath of that main road there. Sometimes vehicles parked on there. It is a problem for certain vehicles that do speed. We also know it's there's a number of properties there. Also, some of the road condition that is poor at times. Watching it for potholes. Also, the rear on each of it. Watching it for animals there. So it is a safety issue. We also I do understand the local volunteer community speed watch has carried out some work there in the past, so that's great when local volunteers can step up to try to make an area safer. And as the chairman referred, local people seem to understand this, but it's often, this particular stretch of road is often used to miss out the A16 and cut through to the other section of the bypass there. That does create extra problems, extra speeding issues. Also, many cyclists do use this road, particularly as a transport to the factories. So it is quite a busy road at times. We must value life, value safety of all road users, because we know a split-second decision can change some people's lives forever. So I agree with the recommendation, and has it been moved or seconded? If not, I wish to move the recommendation. Thank you.
Councillor Overton.
Thank you. Seconded. I think that was a proposal. Seconded. Support the case. The case is well made by previous speakers as well as in the papers. Thank you.
Any other speakers? No, that's it, Vice Chairman and Chair.
Thank you. We have a proposer and a seconder, Councillor Hill and Councillor Taylor.
Councillor Taylor's proposed.
Oh, I thought Councillor Overton. Sorry. Sorry about that. Right. Recommending approval. I would like to propose that the committee notes the content of the report, and in so doing so has due regard to the relevant speed limit policy criteria as detailed in the report, has considered the proposal to commence the statutory process for speed limit order to introduce a 40 and 30 mile speed hour limit for the section of a road shown in Appendix A, and recommends to the Executive Council for Highways and Transport that the proposal be approved. All those in favour? Unanimous. Yeah, thank you. That recommendation is now carried. That now concludes the business for this meeting. We will shortly have a training session on planning enforcement here in the chamber, following a break and some refreshments. After our next meeting on Monday, the 13th of April, we will have a councillors' development event on the historic environment and assets in the chamber. Invitations will follow soon. If you have any questions or queries, please do not hesitate to contact the Democratic Services Officer. Thank you for attending. We will now close the meeting at 1:15. Thank you.